Okay, so starting off with a bang. So when I did start on board the Schooner Adventure, June 27th, 2012, I had literally no knowledge of this world. No, I couldn't have told you a dory from a schooner at that point. My only experience with boating was just a little bit of canoeing and sailing on some cruise ships. And I had asked to come on board. I'd been selling my pictures to benefit the Schooner Adventure for several years. And I asked if I could come on board to take some pictures of the Schooner Adventure to sell for the benefits, thinking it was a one-shot deal. So when I got to the docks, this is what I found. Not knowing anything about that, I wasn't too excited until I got below deck. And when I got below deck, and I saw the gorgeous curvature of the wood, the textures, the old wood. If you see behind the tools here, there's some old original wood from 1926, along with some new wood. I felt visually like a kid in a candy shop. I was so excited. And when I was coming off the boat, they were hauling another schooner out at the railways. And I had never even imagined that before. And I suddenly was in love and had to be part of this project. In fact, I actually called my husband to see if he minded if I came home a couple hours late that day. And it was our wedding anniversary. So that was the beginning of my transformation of my life here. I never imagined when I got on board for that first time, the world that was awaiting me. The wonderful people are just amazing and so eager to help educate and assist and make sure we stayed safe. But the vocabulary, I didn't realize I was going to be learning a new language. And I'm still learning that language. And this is one example of that. The one thing that was happening on deck during June of 2012 is the rigging was being worked on, the shrouds, and they start with a wire cable, and they press twine, paraffin and lanolin soaked twine into the crevices of that, and then tar it, and then parcel it, which is wrapping it, in this case, with linen. And then you can see up on top of this picture where it had been served, where the twine had been tightly wrapped around the outside. And you can see a little bit right above the thumb of the original wire here. So that was pretty exciting to see that. And then below deck, we were waiting for inspection from the Coast Guard for installing ballast and installing the engine that summer. And it was really great that the Coast Guard worked so closely with us, on all kinds of aspects. And we were ready to go. The first major thing that I witnessed was the ballast being installed. Here they have a crane loading the 27,000 pounds of lead for the ballast onto deck. And once the lead got onto deck, that's the last time a crane was used. That 27,000 pounds in 30 and 60 pound blocks, and you can see the size of it relative to a hard hat. That had to get moved from on deck to below deck, which happened by way of a wooden slide that was rigged up. And then the blocks were slid down into, this is the bottom of a blue bucket we had some ballast seawater in. And the barrel was sitting on top of a couple of tie-bar tubes to act as shock absorbers. When they took the lead out of that, they had to then stack it on the keelson and eventually move it to specific locations where it was going to be put in. If you look down the bottom of the screen, you may be able to see a little bit of the silver here and the cement. What they basically were doing is cementing the ballast in. The cement was all mixed on deck, 12,000 pounds of it, and put in buckets and dropped in this blue bucket by hand down to the guys below. And there they went, placing the lead, cementing it into place, And when a section was top, they just coated the top of it with cement. I became really impressed with the crew, the people who were doing this, as I have been with everybody I've seen working on and sailing on the adventure. It's amazing. I got a call one day in August at work asking me if I was able to get there because they had the diesel engine being delivered in about 10 minutes. And I work in Rockport, and fortunately I was midstream of work, so I headed on over. And here's a site that I got. They had just dropped the engine below deck, and Bill Whitney was down there taking delivery. Fortunately, I have a job where I can really come and go, so it fit really well into doing this kind of work for the adventure. Same day, the masts were being prepared to be stepped. These are the bottoms of the mast right here, and you see the lines that are coming down. That's the shroud. That's going to help support the masts. Everything was going on from painting to the leather chafing gear being stitched. This was for where the shroud was going to be wrapped around the mast. And you'll see a picture of that a little later. Now, we had a mission. The engine was important because what we were really trying to do is have the adventure motor for the schooner parade of sail. We wanted to be able to do that. That was our primary objective. August 20th, the adventure came out onto the railways. Obviously hasn't been a while since she was out of the water, and her hull was cleaned and painted. And we had lettering done on the back. And we had blocks being delivered, chain being delivered. The hardware that goes on top of the mast was installed to accept the rigging. Here's the leather shrouds with the leather in place, And we went back in the water, and on August 29th, the masts were stepped. Here we have the railway's travel lift being used to physically move the mast. This is the main mast from where it was stored to where the crane was going to be picking it up. While it was on motion, it was being painted, touch-up work along the way, which I thought was kind of funny. And then we have the main mast being lifted into place and guided into the space for it to be set. And then here's Greg Bover receiving the shroud as the mast was being lowered, and then making sure that was getting installed properly. The foremast was lifted, and same process, being guided in. And here we have August 29th. We've got spars. It's pretty exciting. And we were only a couple days away from the adventure, hopefully leading the parade of sail for the Schooner Festival. So we had the engine ready, and because we had inspections that were going to occur on Friday evening of the Schooner Festival during the mayor's reception, the Coast Guard and the insurance companies were going to be on board to certify the engine for us. And we had Mike Bergen, who's a longtime volunteer, be part of that process because he is a reserve Coast Guard. So we thought that would be a special thing for him. Saturday morning of Schooner Weekend, September 1st, 2012, the engines got started up for the first time. We needed to do a shakedown sail. And so here we have the adventure motoring away from the Coast Guard dock. And it was the first time in 19 years she was under her own power. So that was pretty exciting. We had Captain Harold Burnham and Amanda Madeira putting the engine through their paces. And I have to tell you, I was in the chaser boat with Donnie King, the Scotia girl who does the chase boat for a lot of our work. And I never saw a more beautiful sight than this. I actually had people texting me to say, I think I saw the adventure go by. So I think the whole town saw it and was pretty excited. Sunday at Schooner Festival, we indeed did lead the Schooner Parade under engine power. Jim Sharp was once again at the helm. This is a little bit unusual for him because he had never captained this boat with an engine. he never had an engine in her when he was using her for wind jamming. And now he didn't have sails, he had to use the engine. So it was a new experience for him as well. So our objective was for this 2012 was to sail on this day, and it happened. And we had so many wonderful people with us who are ancestors, descendants of people. Here we have Jeff Thomas, who's grandson of Jeff Thomas, the captain, her first captain who actually commissioned her. And here's a picture of his grandfather in the foreground, which is kind of a cool grandfather-grandson shot there. Helen Garland and Jim Knott's longtime supporters were there. Helen was actually carrying her husband Joe's red sweatshirt that he always wore when he was at the helm. So it was just a magical, magical day. And that all happened in the first 2 months that I was involved with the adventure. I was quite impressed with the rate at which things were happening. In October, it was a kind of unique experience. We had 3 of the 6 remaining seaworthy Essex-built schooners at the Gloucester Railways. We have the Highlander Sea on the left, the Roseway in the middle, and the Adventure on the right. So having half of what's left was pretty remarkable. Winter came, and we're working regardless of the weather. This was a cold day in January. We hauled out. Here we have the boat being basically walked into the platform that was going to carry us out. And here you can see the platform, the carriage. And the hull was inspected, and we did replace a few planks, which is routine. Pretty much every time she comes out, we have a schedule for replacing planks. As the winter went on, construction continued. Really focused a lot on the watertight bulkheads. Coast Guard regulation required that we have 5 of those. The original schooner Adventure did not have them, so there were going to be some adjustments we had to make. The very far aft and forward sections were going to be divided off, and we needed to have access for them now. So we had to put in additional hatchways so that all the compartments could be accessed. As you can see, the hatchway. In May of 2013, Harold Burnham and Bruce Slifer had finished building our main boom and gaff, and we took delivery on them from Harold and Mary Kay Taylor outside of Harold's shop in Essex, and brought them back to Gloucester. And you can see this is the boat we dragged them behind us with, and the length of that 65-foot gaff. It was pretty remarkable. It was a little bit hairy when we were going down the Annisquam River and going under the railroad bridge, because there's a little current that can happen there. But fortunately, we made it through without a problem. The engine room work was big focused, making sure we were even better prepared for running. We have electrical work happening. You can see the watertight bulkheads were being started. This is actually the forecastle, I'm sorry, this is the fish hold section here. Whoops. This, sorry? We're in the captain's quarters right now. Sorry, I was just taking a sip of water. And you can see the bulkhead was being framed here. In fishing days, this space was open, and it was actually used by crew as sleeping quarters. So we were losing some of that functional sleeping space. Here's the Lazarette Bulkhead, which is that aft section we were just looking at, work continuing. And each of the planks that were being put into place here had to be hand cut and templated because of the curvature of the hull. No one slat had a straight line. It was, everything was the detail, precision with which they had to cut to get this in place was just a remarkable thing to witness for me. Here we're looking from the captain's quarters towards the engine room, and we had to have fireproofing in that room for Coast Guard regulation. And here you can see the finish boards kind of starting to come in place here. We're going to move to the forecastle. This spot way up here, the forepeak, had originally had berths in it for the fishermen. And this is the one you saw the deck hatch cut into it, because we were going to lose access to that space otherwise. And again, the same beautiful wood that was added in layers. This one was a 45-degree angle, and it was finished in a horizontal. And I'm told that the layering in different directions was for strength. By having different grains of the wood going in different directions, it adds strength. Here I am in the galley. This is June 2013, looking into the fish hole. You can see the wall back there was pretty much done. Here we are looking at what would be the galley wall. The plywood's in place, but there's still a couple more layers that needed to be finished. Just looking at the other side of that wall from the fish hole. And up on deck, stuff was happening still too. We had to make the area around the mast watertight, so wedges were placed in, and a mast boot was cut from an old tire tube and put in place for some water tightness, so if the weather gets rainy, that we don't get a lot of wetness down below. A baggy wrinkle were made and were put up, waiting for some sails. We have some block work happening. We were waiting for sails at this point. In the summer of 2013, our goal for this summer was to not just be in the lead of the parade of sails under motor, we wanted to do it under sail. So everything was being done to try to get rigging and all the parts done that needed to for the sailing. We were also installing the original sink fixtures back to the 1950s. Painting was happening for the planks that were being installed into the fish hold. You can see here we have our watertight door now, and this is the wall that separates the fish hold from the forecastle. And obviously, John Fuller, the executive director at the time, was pretty pleased with how things were coming along. The beginning of August was the most exciting weekend. We had a 3-day weekend where Greg Bailey brought the Amistad and his crew to help put the main boom and gaff on and bend the sails on for the first time. It had been 20 years since the Adventure had sails. You can see all the blocks were here. We had new mast hoops that Greg Over had made. And everybody, those 3 days were just incredible frenzy of work. Everything happening from finishing work on the booms and gaffs, putting on the mast hoops, putting on handholds. Oops, I see a problem there, my typo. And there was lots of collaboration. We have the Ryan Graham from Maine Maritime and the mate from the Amistad collaborating on what's the best way to get this, the mast and the booms and gaffs put up, because we weren't using a crane. They were going to be hand lifted up. There was some finished work on the lines. We have some serving. In the beginning of the presentation, I showed you the warming and parceling and told you there would be a slide at the end that shows the serving. This is the tool, the serving mallets, that's used to get that final wrap of twine around the lines. More block work, and on August 3rd, the sails were brought on board, which was a really exciting moment. And the sails started being bent on pretty immediately. We were working on the jib, the jumbo, and the foresail pretty much simultaneously. There were 3 groups of people who were working on those. Here we have bringing the foresail on deck. And you can see the process is happening. All the sails getting on except for the mainsail at this point. And we always have come across education opportunities. And even when we're as busy as trying to get the booms and gaffs and sails up, we always take the opportunities for education as they come along. And that's one of the things that's always really impressed me with everybody associated with the adventure, is just the willingness to share knowledge. Here we have the the 4 boom and gaff, the foresail bent on and just about ready to furl. But we had to wait for a few minutes because we were ready to put up the jumbo sail. This is the first sail that was put up on the adventure. We did it dockside. And everybody stopped. And the pride, even from the people from the Amistad who've only been on board for a couple of days, it was just amazing. There were tears, like I still have now. It was just an amazing experience. And people came by in their boats or, you know, on the beach docks and were like so excited. They couldn't believe that this boat had been in Gloucester Harbor for all this time and we were now really happening. We're making it happen. So the work continued aloft. The furling of the foresail happened. And once that happened, everybody shifted gears to be working on the mainsail. The main boom was hoisted into place, and it was all done by hand, a lot of work. And the gaff was put in place. Captain Greg Bailey is making sure everything was secure here. And then the mainsail. The mainsail is 2,740 square feet. It's the 3rd largest mainsail in North America, not just in the United States, but in North America. It's an impressive sight to see it rolled out. Just inspiring. Here it's pretty much set on the boom, and they were starting to bend it onto the gaff. And we're just about ready to furl here. And that was August 4th. About a week later, I'm going to take a sip here, excuse me. We had our first of 2 shakedown sails. Unfortunately, the Amistad couldn't stay for this. They had obligations in the Caribbean. But our volunteers and crew were just beside themselves happy with getting these sails raised and working out some of the minor kinks. And once we got fully a sail and you just saw them, the full sails, it was just an amazing sight, and it still is for me. Back on shore, we continued working. We wanted to try to make the adventure easier to take the descendants and supporters and volunteers who are going to be on board, and being able to access various parts of the boat that was needed. The captain's hatchway was constructed. The fish hold wasn't going to be accessible to people during the voyage, but it was in good shape. The gangway work was done to make sure we had smooth ways in and out. And the heads were installed, both the aft head and the head in the forecastle area. We had a second shakedown sail on August 23rd. I opted again to be in the chase boat for that, so I can take some pictures of the adventure sailing. And it was just a glorious sight, just magnificent. Here we are, a schooner race. It was a foggy, drizzly day, but it did not matter. Everybody on board was just so thrilled that we were there under sail. And I'm gonna cry here, sorry folks. As we rounded the corner to parallel Stacy Boulevard, and we were announced that the adventure was leading the parade of sail, the roar that went up was just amazing. And every boat in the harbor, it seemed, came up to us and was cheering us on. People were singing to us. It was just the most remarkable day. Sorry about that. We had Greg Bailey was back as our captain. He came back from the Caribbean for this with us. And his navigational team included Captain John Miles and Captain Jim Sharp. And Jim has this devilish little grin on his face here. because one of the things he asked us to do to catch more wind was to put up the water sails, and our crew did not know what that was. And so he just asked them to bring up every tarp that we had and attach them to the bottom of the boom. So when the booms went out, they had more sail space. They were so excited that they actually put the water sails all the way to the mast, and the captains couldn't see where they were going for a little bit. It was pretty funny. One thing is, no matter how hard the work was, we always have fun, and that's part of the culture that's here, is just the camaraderie and enjoying what you're doing. And here we are finishing second place, and you can see the reaction from some of our crew here, and we were so thrilled to have done so well. We were happy just to be out there, but to come in second with a boat that we had only sailed twice during shakedown sails was pretty remarkable. Winter came, and again, winter is prime time for work to be done on the adventure, because we're sailing in the summer. Now we're sailing in the summer. And it doesn't matter the weather. There's no heat on board, but people just wear their coats and do the work. Here we have Jeff Deckenbach working on deck so he could capture some heat from the sun in January. We had continued installation happening. Jeff actually had gone to Mystic to take pictures of the LA Dunton of their galley. This is where our galley was going to become. But we weren't quite sure what it was going to look like. And the LA Dunton, being one of the 6 remaining Essex builds, we thought would be a good source of a reference for us. So Jeff went down and took those pictures, and we used them to help design. Big focus for winter of 2014 was the forecastle. We really wanted to get the forecastle in place and be usable for the crew. Look at the difference in the hull versus the finished wood that they're putting in here. It's just so beautiful, just so beautiful. And here they were putting in the dividers to separate off each berth, and just more framing of the berth. We also on deck had the deck itself was going to be worked on, caulked and tarred, and we needed to have a winter cover put in place over that forward section. And here they are removing the old caulk, putting in new caulking. They did tarring. And meanwhile, below deck, the forecastle continued to be worked on. Here they're putting in the bench / storage areas. And here we see the berths were masked and painted. The Charlie Noble was going in. That Charlie Noble is basically the vent or smokestack from the stove. And throughout the spring, we continued actively working. And I love this picture because it shows that everything that goes onto the event, gets built on the adventure, had to happen on deck. The saws were brought on deck. All the wood carried on, onto the boat, and then worked on doing whatever needed to happen. It's not like we had a wood shop ready set up in our basement that we could go down to. We had to physically bring it to the boat every time we need it. Here's JJ applying a saltwater bath. A lot of work on the engine compartment here. This thing, we had the bilge manifold is now installed. This little structure here. And she was hauled out again in May of 2014. I love the shape of this vessel. You just don't get to see this very often. The whole boat is just phenomenally beautiful. Caulking was happening, which is just routine stuff, but we did need to replace a section of the stem. So here we have John Miles securing in the new stem section for us. This launch on June 4th, relaunch, was really significant for us. Here, the adventure right now is being walked off of the carriage that brought her out of the water. In the water, you can see the brown spots. That's the tops of the platforms that she had been sitting on. But this was remarkable because this was the last day we were going to be living at Gloucester Marine Railways. We had Captain Graham McKay on board to bring adventure to her new home at Maritime Gloucester. And despite it being another drizzly, rainy day, we had a great turnout and a very warm welcome. This picture for me, it just epitomizes what the culture is like, what the wonderful people are like with Schooner Adventure. Anybody who's been involved with her for any length of time believes, like I do, that this is my vessel, this is my boat. We all own this privately. And here we have longtime volunteer Michael Bergman, who was out at a flea market and he saw some blocks, so he bought them and brought them to the adventure. It's just, you know, the way things are. This is just our baby and everybody just takes care of her. We have the forecastle looking great with the recently painted backings. And here we have the galley starting to be worked on. Well, actually the bosun's locker here, and the head's going to be placed right in here. A new stairway was constructed June 14th. The table in the forecastle was being built. Here we have the pantry area of the galley set up. This is the cabinet that would hold the sink. And people still have fun. We creative use of whatever is available to take things from the shops, the short storage area, AKA the cave, which is at the total other end of the pier from the boat. Electrical work continued, engine work continued, and here we have the sink and the refrigerator now installed. Captain Stefan Edick kind of joined us in that year, earlier in the season, and here he is at the Schooner Festival as we're racing for the Esperanto Cup. End of the sailing season. This is pretty much a standard sight now. Every year come October and November, the sails are taken down, folded up, lowered below deck, and the booms and gaffs are taken off. So when you hear that we're winterizing, that's first part of the process. 2015 was a pretty quiet year for restoration. There were some little things happening, but you know, we had a really strong focus this year on education and membership. Educating, this is a great, you can see how excited these kids are from Boston. We went down and we had a bunch of kids on board, and they really got into it and appreciated them. Most of the kids had never been on a boat before, so it was a really exciting experience for them. The forecastle and the galley are looking pretty good here, middle of June, and we have crew now living aboard. The galley is looking pretty good, and we still don't have the proper stove, but we're using a microwave and toaster oven at this point for cooking food. And now here we have a fully functioning galley with the new stove in place. 2016 was a remarkable year for the adventure. It was the 90th birthday. Excuse me, and we celebrated with a Roaring 20s gala, which was quite fun. It was also a year when we had to change locations because the Gloucester Harbor was being cleaned up. So we had to move from the Harbor Loop to the State Pier. Initially, we didn't have a good way to get people from the pier above to the dock below to get on the adventure. So the harbor master was great about ferrying passengers to us. You can see the adventure in the background here. Just again, just teamwork on all levels. It's just so remarkable in this organization. And our kids that were coming on board got to experience climbing down the Jacob's ladder. So that was an extra added bonus for some of the students that came on board. Schooner Festival came, and we had an unexpected surprise. Captain Leo Hines' grandson, Stephen, came, and he presented the weather station that Captain Leo Hines used to keep in his berth with him whenever they were sailing. So that was really great. And the other extra wonderful thing that happened in 2016 was Captain Steph Edick led us to victory, winning the Esperanto Cup. It was the first time post-reservation, and we hadn't won the Esperanto Cup since 1991. So it was a spectacular way to finish off our sailing season. And here's our winning crew. Winter is upon us again, winter of 2016 to 2017. And this is a pretty typical appearance for the fish hold in the winter at this point. Everything that had been on deck gets moved below deck for storage. And the focus this year was going to be renovating the captain's quarters. This is what the captain's quarters looked like when when she got to Gloucester and before the deconstruction happened. I want you to pay attention to this panel here. We really wanted to recreate that panel, and if you notice, there's also a portal there. This is that panel. We were able to save it, but we were not able to reuse it because it was in pretty tough shape. And here we are moving this from Greg Bover's storage place at CB Fisk, Oregon. And we were moving it up into Harold Burnham's in Essex. And fortunately, we had this so that Greg could take detailed measurements of every aspect, the moldings, whatever, and just replicate that so beautifully. And here you can see up on the starboard side of the captain's quarters now. If you notice, there's a little bit of a circle here. That's the spot they're going to be cutting out to make the portal. And here is shipwright Tony Finocchiaro doing the portside portal. I was so excited to get this shot. I so wanted to be on board when this happened, to get the sawdust flying off of that. And I lucked out. I was there 15 minutes that day, and it was the right 15 minutes. I really get passionate about this. The captain quarters here is coming along really nicely. And what I want to point out is this cabinet here, the closet. This is original to 1926. And if you look at how perfectly Greg was able to get the staining to match, he really had to figure out what type of wood to make these panels from, and it happens to be I want to say the right one, sycamore. It's sycamore, which is an unusual wood and hard to get in large quantities. And then they were able to figure out exactly what to do to finish it, to make it match. Always detailed work. They're making the hatch cover for access below deck. And end of March 2017, the captain's quarters were completed and finished. And just spectacular in appearance. September of 2017, we had a celebration to dedicate the captain's quarters to Joe and Helen Garland. And Helen, who prides herself on being a little bit older than the boat, in her 90s, still climbed down the hatchway and was an active part of this process. And here they are reminiscing with some old news clips, and it was just wonderful, wonderful to see. Winterizing again. This time the masts were removed, and we were hauled out in October of 2017 to work on the shrouds. And here you have a picture of new leather chafing going on board. And here we are carrying the shrouds back from the work area to the boat. And that's going to tell you it's pretty heavy. But we were back in operation for the 2018 season. Here we have Michael Bergman catching line toss from the Roseway as she came to dock up against us. And we had continued focus on adventure. We had on venture education. We had more education programs than ever before. And winter of 2018 into 19, it was the fish hold's turn to be finished off. We had pens being installed. The deck, once again, was looking like a workshop. And you can see the pens being framed in here. precision work that they were doing for cutting and making sure things were, lined up just perfectly with that curvature of the hull. Here we have one level of pens, and then the second level finish off. And that, finish up the major things of parts of restoration, but the preservation work continues. Excuse me. Master Carpenter Greg Bover this summer made new cleats. He told me that he realized the majority of the cleats on board were all different from each other. So now we have cleats that everybody knows are the same and are used the same way. And just here's the cleat mounts and the cleats starting to be put on again. Education about the life of dory fishermen has always been a huge focus for us, and it's been so much fun for me to be on board with some of the students as they go through the educational programs that we run. They can get really excited about it. And this summer we actually launched our 2 dories. They're in the water, and we're hoping to use them for a new level of experiential learning. You can probably hear from my voice, this, for a person who didn't know a dory from a schooner, and when I came on board in 2012, I now have the adventure is part of my blood. The culture, the support, the eagerness to educate people, even if I'm asking the same question 4 times, nobody seems to get impatient with that. The camaraderie, the belief that this is our vessel. We are the schooner adventure. We are sailing and sharing the way life was and offering maybe something unexpected and an adventure aboard the adventure. It has been such an honor and a thrill for me to have been blessed with the opportunity to take these pictures and document kind of this process that's happened. And I just can't thank everybody enough for allowing me to do that. And thank all of you for coming out tonight and for continuing to keep our vision mission alive and going. So thank you.